Do you have to be crazy to make art? Yes, I think so. I think you have to be a little crazy by definition. I think it's part of the definition of art is that the artist is a little bit crazy, because by definition, art is created outside of existing culture. Art is not tracing an existing work of art, right? You're not coloring within the lines. You're taking what exists in your current culture and you're running it through you and then expressing something new and different. That's what differentiates art from mainstream entertainment. The stuff that is showing up on primetime television isn't likely to break new artistic ground in most cases, right? It's going to be more formulaic and already have relatively widespread cultural approval and sanction. Also, not knocking primetime TV here, right? There's plenty of great mainstream storytelling going on in popular television and film. There's lots of great stuff being made out there, not knocking it. But if it's new and it's different in ways that people have never seen or are not used to seeing, that's a bigger risk, right? If people have their current cultural glasses on, you like my cultural glasses, through that lens of what is acceptable in current culture, any truly new and innovative art is going to look a little crazy to the average person. People are gonna stare at it and think, WTF? What is that? That's not what I'm used to. How am I supposed to process this? It's strange to me. I can't understand what this is getting at. That's why making art isn't safe. You're potentially challenging aspects of the current culture. And people who are stable and happy within the current culture may not like that. They may find your art upsetting, And the goal is to make art that is so good that even when it upsets people, they still like it. But it's hard. It's very hard to make good art. That's not easy. That's not an easy task. To make high quality art, first you have to adapt to and participate in the existing culture. You have to be of the culture you are creating art for. You have to understand the culture intimately and be a well-integrated member of that culture. You can't create art for a culture if you're a total outsider to that culture, obviously, right? They won't understand you. You won't be able to relate to them. But you can't just be an average participant in the culture either. If you want to be an artist, you have to go outside the current culture and encounter new ideas and new ways of being. You have to struggle with aspects of life that are not fully accounted for by the current culture, especially mainstream culture. You have to experience things that the current culture is not well adapted to handle. Then you have to start dreaming up creative ideas related to those new experiences that are not codified by cultural norms. If the culture doesn't know how to categorize what you just experienced, then you as an artist have a little bit of free reign to try to explain it for the culture through your art. That's where the fun happens. That's also where things turn risky, right? Because the culture may not accept your explanation for whatever phenomenon you experienced outside of the culture. They may consider what you're expressing to be taboo in some way. They might see you as a threat to the current way of life in some fashion. And maybe you are a threat, right? Maybe your art sucks, but also maybe it's brilliant and people just can't see that yet, right? We can be optimistic. Maybe your art is threatening because it's brilliant. Or maybe it sucks. I don't know. It's hard to tell usually in the moment. But, the current culture, the people that are of that culture, they might tell you to shut up. They might get violent toward you. They might lock you up or kill you. Probably not, in most modern Western democratic countries with cultural norms that involve things like civil rights protections, freedom of speech. But historically, it has not always been safe to be an artist. And depending on where you live on planet Earth currently, it still isn't. I don't know, there's people probably watching this on TikTok and places where it's not safe to make art, you can still garner plenty of online vitriol from your current culture if they think your art is running afoul of accepted cultural norms. Making art can be isolating. You're playing around with weird ideas, by yourself up in your head. But you got to figure out, how do you connect with others around those ideas? Artists still ultimately are seeking connection, right? I know it seems like I'm just talking to a camera in a room right now, but I want to be talking to actual people about this stuff through the camera in the room. Artists, you go outside of the culture on this voyage of discovery, and that's really cool. But then the goal is always to bring that back as new creative learning, bring that experience back to the culture. The art form I play in is stand-up comedy. I love all sorts of stand-up, traditional stand-up, alternative stand-up. I'm not certain there is actually a clear line that separates, traditional comedy from alternative comedy. The difference there seems to me to be more of one of degree. Traditional comedy, it doesn't reach as far outside of the culture as alternative comedy. Alternative comedy is more ambitious. Alternative comedy doesn't try to speak the current cultural language as much as traditional comedy does. With traditional stand-up, you make more of an effort to meet the audience where they are within the current culture. You bring your art to them. The setting for the new ideas you are expressing is the current culture. You give them relatable touch points, and then you sprinkle in, a little bit of chaos that they aren't adapted to, jostle things up a little bit. Alternative comedy is more of an invitation to go exploring outside the culture together as a group. It's not clear what the point of the exploration is always. The punchline can seem like a muddle of ill-defined absurdity. Everything isn't necessarily resolved and tied up with a neat little bow for ready consumption, for the average audience member. Alternative comedy, feels like a way to wake up artistic curiosity in the audience. It's as if the comic acts as a guide to show people, see, you too can go explore these strange ideas. I don't have the answers. Our culture doesn't have the answers. But look, isn't this weird what we're seeing over here? Don't you want to go poke this, and see what happens? Traditional comedy, traditional stand-up, it operates by breaking down the current culture and reshuffling perspective to make fun of the culture from mostly within the bounds of the culture. Alternative stand-up is a group field trip to uncertain ground. It's a vacation from the normal, if that makes any sense. Jokes always have a comic subject. The question is whether the comic subject lies within the current culture or outside of it. If you're making jokes about something already accounted for by the current culture, then you're likely in the realm of more traditional stand-up comedy. People will readily understand you. By contrast, if you're making jokes about something that isn't well understood within the current cultural frame, you're going to be inching toward alternative comedy. It's going to be harder for the audience to relate. They aren't going to have as many cultural touch points to get a hold of. I think both of these things, traditional and alternative comedy, are very fun to do if you have the skill to pull them off. You can even mix them together. There's balance to all of this. I think they're both useful and beneficial to helping a culture evolve in healthy ways. As I mentioned, alternative comedy tends to be more ambitious. It's more difficult to be able to pull off alternative comedy. I think you need to train yourself by getting good at more traditional stand-up first. Traditional stand-up, that's how you get the mechanics of stand-up. That's how you get the mechanics down. Lots of comics, myself included, we start off trying to tackle really grand ideas and difficult subjects, and that's exciting to us, because as creative people, we want to be wrestling with challenging ideas that are not well understood, not well integrated within our culture. That's mysterious and thrilling. Creatives love encountering novelty and then trying to make sense of it. Novelty is inspiration. You go out and experience weird new things, and then you write or paint or sing about it, or whatever your creative medium happens to be. That's what gets the creative juices flowing. But if you don't have the solid mechanics within your medium down, things like joke structure, timing, stage presence, the ability to read a room, stay emotionally connected, in touch with the audience. If you don't understand that stuff, you aren't going to be able to properly express and communicate these brilliant artistic ideas in a way that people can understand. More than likely, they're either going to stare blankly, maybe boo you. That doesn't happen that much, but I don't know, you could have a really bad show, or then they give you suggestions about how you could improve your jokes after the show. That's the worst one. I'd rather you boo me. So if you want to make great, new, and innovative art, you have to make basic, less challenging, less groundbreaking, more relatable, more mainstream stuff first. As an artist, you have to be normal before you can be crazy. Don't get me wrong, you still have to be crazy. You gotta be crazy, but you can't be completely nuts all of the time and right from the beginning. That's too isolating. Sure, you may be able to entertain the crap out of yourself up in your own mind, but then you're just a dude laughing to himself in public for reasons no one understands. That's too far gone. People are gonna be like, "Ooh, should we take him to the psych ward?" You're gonna get a lot of those looks. So you don't want to go full crazy. Just like 50, 75% crazy. At most when you're up on stage, but you always need to be able to pull it back, re-enter the culture, be relatable, help people understand where you're coming from. And hopefully, you didn't say anything too nutty while you were up on stage, and the audience appreciates your fresh perspective on some stuff they didn't understand as well before they encountered your art. And now you've helped move the culture forward a little bit in an important way. Or maybe they'll take you out front and tar and feather you for hearsay and blasphemy. I don't know. Sometimes bad things happen to good people who are trying their best. That's the risk you take, you crazy SOB. Now go out there and paint something with your paintbrush. Go sing a song in the shower and then share it with the world.